Welcome back to part 2 of the C10 mystery build, which of course is a mystery no longer. And you can see here, looks quite a bit different than I left it at the end of part 1. So there's been a lot of progression that's happened. So I think the first thing I want to do is kind of bring you up to speed with a little photo montage of the build that happened kind of between then and now. And then we'll take a look at the parts and pieces that are left and kind of talk about what's needed to get this guy completed. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the montage. All right, now that you're all caught up, let's take a look at what's left here. So as you saw in the montage, I swapped out the Mofo RC oil-filled shocks for these long travel hot racing. I've used these before, I really like them. And what that did was allow me to get actually up here into this shock mount. I've got really basically the same articulation, but I think I'll get more actual compression once I do a little battery tray clearancing for these upper links. Right now that's my stop, and I'm a little bit shy of full compression. You can see there on these shocks. So I've got it at the twist, but not just straight up and down. So that'll be something that we'll clearance out to get our full articulation and full up travel. So you also saw that I installed the fenders and I did the typical back trimming, but on these I did quite a bit here to allow for the tire at full lock and full compression, since I don't have any extensions on these. And I ended up lowering these posts and dropping this body down, and that was just due to kind of how it fit with this guy. This Tuggy kit, it comes with the bulkhead, but this rear cage doesn't actually screw to that bulkhead like the Lgrp kit. It actually attaches on top. So you kind of have to line it up, and that took a little while to kind of get it all square. And as I was doing that, I was kind of looking at how it sat on the truck and that hinge. So it really wanted to drop to get it to all sit right. So in doing that, of course I had to clearance out the fender wells. So that was really easy to do with a clear body and having these installed, because I could basically see through and see how much I could trim before I actually trimmed too much. And you saw the fenders. Let's see if I can get this lined up blind here. There we go. So that's going to sit pretty nice, and at full articulation, full lock, I've got clearance with that inner fender, I've got clearance with my outer fender, and I really like that look. It's kind of the Kevin Talbot monster truck cut that he did on his C10. So anyways, that's kind of the big picture there, and of course I've got a spare. Got to figure out how to get that mounted to the back of the cage. The kit comes with a crossbar, not really set up to mount a tire, so I could either strap to that, or I've got this spare tire mount that comes with his Vader kit. So I could try to maybe get this to work with that. That's an option. Of course, we've got the electronics, the Lizard Pro, the receiver. I've got this Little Guy Racing light bar, and they make a C10 little attachment here, a bracket. So this fits in the stock C10 roll bar. And because this kit comes with a roof rack that basically extends, and it's made to accept that C10 light bar, this drops right in. So that's going to be my roof lighting. So I've got a switch for that, and to control the headlights. Going to run without a bumper on this one because I've got it so trimmed and the body's so slammed. And I really like the look of it. Couldn't find a good bumper I wanted to run on this. Got some mirrors I'm going to get on there. You can see I got the Limber Pine interior tray that I usually use. Started to get that fitted for the rear bulkhead attachments, and then I'll have to notch the sides for the little the bolts coming through on the mirrors. Picked up some scale gas tanks from an eBay seller that I've bought from before. I'll put him up here on the screen. He makes the little gas tank Rotopack insets for the JLU rear windows. So I use those on one of my JLU builds. But really nice quality. Comes with the black gas caps already. Nice little scale. So get those on there, and then the last thing here, you can see I've got a slew of hex weights, which are basically the same. I've got heavy and light in brass and heavy and light in black. Not that I'm going to use them all, just options for tuning, and then options if any of these have trouble fitting. So that's if I want to add a little weight. So we'll just see at the end. So anyways, this is already going long, so we're going to jump forward and see if we can't get this thing wrapped up. All right, a little update here. Look at that. So I just got finished putting a little of this grease in all four corners on the shocks. So I'm very, very happy with these. It took out a lot of the bounce, most all of it. I'm happier with these than I was with those Mofo oil-filled shocks. You can see I've got my full clearance there, full compression. Basically got my two little channels right there for the upper links and the battery tray. That worked out perfect. So now that all the clearances, all the geometry is working, I think it's time to get the light bar installed on the roof, get that routed, get the mirrors popped on, the interior tray in, and mount it up to the cage, and basically get that body ready to pop on here, and that'll be basically the electronics. So not far to go. Boom, that back tire went on perfectly. So I didn't end up using this guy because A, it kind of holds the tire up kind of off of the cage, and then secondly, it needed 2 mount points, and so I've got one here, and you can see that the cage is kind of widened for that screw hole. So there wasn't really width to pop another hole in this. So I was thinking about kind of the method to do it, and you can see here it's just rubber banded around that just straight brace. And that's kind of nice because now I can, instead of having it necessarily just on center on that post, I can actually just move it up with some tension, and it just sits kind of off center of the post. Move it down, so that's nice, some adjustability to kind of tuck it up here above that hinge. So perfect, sweet. And then the center cap covers the little piece of paper clip that I used. So I almost felt like a surgeon using this little guy doing stitches or something, but it made it really easy to fish that rubber band through the wheel. So cage, tire, complete. So I think we'll get the light on there, get this together, and figure out where we need to get a hole for our light bar wire. All right, back with a quick update. As you saw there, got the hole popped in the roof for the light bar. Wrap that in some masking tape so there's no red wires. So that is super clean. Then I got the mirrors mounted, and then once those were on, I notched my interior tray, got that taped in. Just left it all black this time, just for the kind of the primer gray and black theme. And then you can see I got my gas tanks on the back, and ended up using that really super thin double-sided clear, and that worked really well. Keeps them really tight to the cage. Didn't have to mess with gluing anything in case I ever need to disassemble this. So I'm very happy with that. One thing I totally forgot to mention earlier was super important. I've got to get the magnets glued in. So I think that's the next thing I want to do, is glue the magnets now that the body's fitted, before I get it stuffed with wires and electronics. That way just nothing's in the way, can get the magnets glued in, know that it fits and closes well, and then we can move on and stuff it full of electronics and switches. So not too far to go, but I think I'm gonna have to glue these in and wait overnight to move forward. So for you, we'll be back in just a second. Just wanted to talk about the magnets real quick. You can see these little super thin magnets I use. I get these from Lee Valley Tools, and they have actually double-sided kind of sticky on one side. So I just scrape that off with my fingernail, and so here's 2 of them stacked. So they're super thin. What I like is you can stack them to get more hold as well as more height. But what I found on the C10 body, if you stack them right behind the body post, 2 of those get you right up to the bottom of that flange. So it's perfect if you just close the body. So you just kind of put a blob of glue on that kind of horizontal part of the post, and then glue the bottom magnet there. And for the top, I always like to do the hood first. So you get a magnet on the outside and a magnet on the inside, and you can position it where you want it, and then of course tape the outer magnets down, and then you can pull these inners off and put a big glob of shoe goo and just kind of let go of them, kind of hold them over where they need to go near it, and they'll just jump into place. And then you don't really want to touch them or move them, just let them cure up. So I'm gonna let those cure overnight, and then I'll probably glue these guys on sometime in the morning, and then we'll continue this guy. Oh, and also You can see I've got alcohol out here. You definitely want to clean your magnets, clean your gluing surfaces as well so you get a good bond. But that's kind of the quick and easy overview of magnets. Okay, here we are back with the lower front set of magnets now glued in and cured 24 hours plus. So let's pop the hood here and take a look at those. They're pretty clean on top, and then I try to get shoe goo around the edges and fully underneath. And in this case, I kind of wanted to get shoe goo, you know, in and around that horizontal portion of the post, kind of wrap it underneath. Just try to give these a lot of grab to those little posts, but it works great. You can see the pinholes here, so that hood sits perfectly. So I definitely recommend putting in magnets for these little guys. I've got them on all of my bodies, and it's just super nice not to have to mess with those pins. Don't have to worry about losing them, scratching your hood, whatever. But moving on from magnets, let's look at what's left here to go. So we've got to get in the headlights, and then the cyclical switch here to control those, and the roof lights. Then of course we've got the electronics, and that's just the battery strap there. I've got various lengths of servo extensions to kind of get from the lights all the way to the back hinge, and then back to wherever the receiver is mounted. And then trusty 3M to mount those electronics. And then we're going to weigh this guy up, see if we want to use some of these tuning weights here. These are just hex weights, they're not extensions. And then we've got the scale hubs here to snap on, which I was just kind of waiting till the very end, till we were done pulling wheels on and off this thing. But that's how she's sitting right now. We are close to the finish line, so I'm going to jump in and see if we can't find a home for some of these little goodies here. So stay tuned. And here we are with the electronics all finished, installed, tucked away. The lights are wired, and everything's hooked up and tested. You can't really tell much there. Looks pretty clean. So let's take a look under here. So you can see that layout there gives plenty of room around the motor. ESC is up here on the tray with the Bluetooth. The switch is over here, and then I'm using this little tunnel basically to route underneath to the receiver, and that is all tucked up high and tight away from everything. And then I've got some slack coiled here, and then for these lights with this battery tray and the way this cage closes, I had to keep this wire off of the frame because that cage actually wants to come down right here. So if that slid over, that was keeping this from kind of fully closing. So the solution was to take that in place, and then you can see the opposite side I kind of tucked under and I taped to the bottom to keep it in place. And then I wrapped both of the kind of the bins with black tape just to mask those a little bit, and then kind of left a little slack to allow that to hinge so that all works well and drops right down. So pretty happy with that. Just took a little bit of fishing with tweezers in and around that battery tray, but nothing too hard, just a little bit of thought and time and how to route everything. But once you do it several times, it gets a little bit easier. So I think now let me get a battery in there and let's turn it on. We can test the lights. We have never tested the overdrive, so we can take a look at that as well. So give me just a second. All right, I just got the battery kind of routed and tucked in there. And you can see I'm not using this strap because again, it was just kind of cumbersome with the wire routing and getting the cage to shut. And actually when this is shut, it basically makes a cage around this battery anyways, so it's not really going anywhere. So I just kind of tuck the balance kind of flush with the back of the receiver, since that's where the bulkhead comes down. And there's some clearance here for that cord. Let's see, I want to get that closed cleanly with a good drop there. There you go. I got a lot of weight on that front end with the brass axle, but I think that'll work just fine. So let's get this guy on. There we go, little test. Headlights. Nice. Look at that. That roof light bar is sweet. Nice. Alright, I am super happy with that. That looks really good. You definitely see that overdrive kind of winding and unwinding that front. You see it lift up there and it pulls it back down. So let's get that up on a stand and tape the tires, and let's take a look at that overdrive. All right, we got the wheels taped, ready for a little overdrive test here. So this is a Trio 14T overdrive, which I believe is around 23%. So let's take a look at it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like we're at about 5, gets back. 5, 5 1/4 turns, seems like it gets back in sync. So pretty good amount of overdrive right there. Well, we'll move on. So I think it's time for the scales next. Let's see what this thing weighs. All right, we are zeroed out and ready for weigh-in. I've got the stock battery in. Let's see. I always like to give it another opportunity to settle. Look at that. Am I going to get the 50-50? Looks like it. Looks like 50-50 cross weight with a 54-46 front bias. So stock with the battery, the C10 weighs 228 grams with a 52-48 bias. So we've improved the front bias. We've almost doubled the weight. It could use maybe just a little more. So you can see I've got the tuning weights and I've got the heavier ones here. So I think these are going to be the ones I go with on the front here. It looks like we probably won't need any on the rear. So that's 1%, and that's 2%. So we've added 2% bias up to the front and a little more weight overall. So let's flip over to ounces. 16 ounces. So stock with the battery, this weighs 8 ounces with the 52-48. So we just added 4% to the front and doubled the weight. So that's how she sits right there. Not too bad. So let's get those weights on there. Well, it's that time of the build again. We have arrived at the end. Got the front weights on, got scale hubs on. That was the last little bit remaining. So I think we are fully wrapped up here, and I could not be happier. I am loving the paint scheme. The wheels and tires just look sick on this thing. Super glad I got that spare to work. I think the little pop of color with the gas tanks really kind of sets this one off. And I'm really liking the no front bumper and chopped fenders. Just looks really mean. Gonna give it plenty of room to work up there. So I think the only thing remaining is to get this guy out in the real world and give it a little test run, see how it performs. But I think it's going to do pretty well. But as always, I hope you enjoyed Thanks for coming along on this one. Maybe you learned something, and until next time, thanks for watching.